Hi, welcome to our parenting class. We're so excited to have you with us. Today is week 3, and we are super excited about the reflection and growth that we're going to be talking about. My name is Brandy Padarakis. We are here at Blue Bee Counseling Services, located in South Jordan, Utah. I also have some great people with me. You've probably seen them before. If you want to introduce yourself, Kim, I'll let you start. And then
Sure.
Sydney, we'll let you just take it over after you explain.
Yeah, I'm Kim Jensen. I'm a therapist here at Blue Bee, and I'm an LCSW. Go ahead, Sid.
All right, well then let's jump into it. I'm Sydney and I'm an intern here. So the last few weeks we talked about resilience and then relationships, and now we're going to talk about reflection and growth. A lot of reflection with your children is acknowledging and helping them name their feelings. So I want to talk a little bit about the science behind it, the amygdala, which is a little part in your brain which acts on emotions and instincts, and it can sometimes have trouble distinguishing between real danger and like false alarms without input from the wise part of the brain. And sometimes our kids, they haven't developed the wise part of the brain, so their amygdala sends them into their first reaction. And so through practice, we can help them strengthen the communication between the front and the back part of their brain so that they can manage the strong reactions from their amygdala, and this is called brain integration.
I would love to add a little something in here. It's something kind of like this. I like to see it as like this is our brain right here. And sometimes we will blow our lid, right? And when we blow our lid and our kids respond or they feel heavy, then they blow their lid like this. And what do we have left is the amygdala. And the amygdala is our fight, flight, or freeze response system. And so then we're not really able to process through correctly some of the things that we would be able to normally. We only can just save self. And so that's kind of where what she's talking about. I wanted to give you that little bit of a perspective of blowing our lid. We don't have our full brain to help us navigate through some of our systems.
Yeah. And it's important to, with our children, be able to help them name their feelings, because a lot of times maybe they're feeling frustration, but they don't know that's the right term for it. So we also need to say how we're feeling out loud, because then it gives your child to understand what your feelings are so that they can recognize if they're feeling the same feeling later. Kids will often assume that they've caused your feelings, so it's important to explicitly say, like, if you're upset, like, oh, like, this is why I'm upset, you don't have anything to do with it. And because a lot of times children will assume, and they can handle your feelings. Maybe sometimes as parents we think, oh, they can't handle that, like this strong feeling or like difficulty, but they can handle it as long as they know that you know how to handle your own feelings and that it doesn't fall onto their responsibility. Kids learn as much from your ability to say, I didn't react the way I wanted to, and I wish I'd done something different. It's totally okay to admit if you didn't handle a situation correctly. Um, Kids sometimes will act on their feelings that maybe aren't the best way, so it's important to remind them that all of their feelings are welcome, but all of their behaviors are not. So, for example, it's okay for them to feel angry with their sibling, but it's not okay to hit their sibling. And this helps us separate shame from the expectations that they may have and let our children feel how they feel without them, like shame getting in the way. And they need to experience their uncomfortable feelings so that they can get good at recognizing that they can survive the discomfort. That's a really key feature, that they're going to have discomfort throughout their life, and we can't take that discomfort away, because when they get older and harder things come, they're not going to be able to sit in it, and they need to learn that it is part of life and that they can handle it.
Yeah, there's no bad feeling.
Mm-hmm.
No emotion is bad. And sometimes we want to label the bad ones and the good ones. There's no such thing. It's the reactions that are not okay.
Mm-hmm. So, moving on, we want to discover unique family values. This is a lot of times we want to think about, okay, like, what are the values that are important to us? As are we parenting in the way that our values line in with our parenting so that our children can develop those values? And sometimes it's good to just like sit down as a family and figure out what is it that you want the values to be taught in your children. So think of these are some questions that you can ask yourself and your children. What do I value? What does this family value? Am I parenting in alignment with my values? You can think about a big choice you made in your life in the past and what drove you to make that choice. Think about 3 people that you may admire and like, what do you appreciate about them? What are those characteristics that they have that you want to develop in yourself and in your children? How do you want your children to describe you when they're talking about you to their great grandchildren in the future? And this could be like a fun little family activity for you guys. Have each member write down their top 5 values that are really important to them. And then you can look for themes and combine any that go under the same category. So you can organize them and figure out like 5 top for the entire family. And then write those values down and put them somewhere in the house where you can see them, either on the fridge or on mirrors in the house, so that you can see them often and be able to cultivate those in your family unit.
Sid, you can find list of values online. That gives them a nice place to start. And then you can hand that list to the kids, right, when they're doing that activity. That way they
can just
don't
like
have to come
circle
up
them.
with it in their head. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's perfect.
And some people that are trans, like, what's the word? Like, transitioning out of religion or religiosity.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a friendly reminder in there that the values that came from the religion that you were with, that is something that you could also categorize and see which ones you do choose to keep and which ones that you feel like are a part of value. A lot of times we think, oh, well, that's part of that religion, so I don't want to have those. But that's actually not true. The religion takes those from society. And so we can have all sorts of values, and society can have values, and we can see the benefit that can come from those values or from those keystone concepts and still choose to keep them and really not affiliate them with that religion.
Yeah. Values is a conversation I have a lot. So that's a good one.
And then I want to take this time to think about more about the parent versus the child, and thinking about a parent's needs. Because in order for you to take care of your child, you also need to be taking care of yourself properly. So we have our little pyramid, physiological needs. You need food, water, air, shelter, clothing, heat, sleep, all those basics. Safety. Do you feel safe from violence at home? Do you feel safe in your job or your source of income? You need to be able to feel safe to be able to have the capacity to take care of your children. Social. Find ways to prioritize your relationships outside of your children, and have connection with others and belonging in your community. Self-esteem. Do a small thing each day to acknowledge your own competence as a human and a learning parent. So, for example, like acknowledge like I'm getting better at being a parent. And then self-actualization, which is when you need to make compromises to find a balance so that you don't become the martyr mom. Still do things for yourself. Don't think that, oh, because I'm a mom now, I don't get to do this, this, and this. You can still have time to do things that make you happy and that you enjoy. So don't over-sacrifice for your children.
Sid, this is actually something I use a lot. If one of the kids that come to see me are struggling with social, I will always drop down to the one under it and check their safety. How safe are they feeling at school? How are they feeling at home? Right? If they're like having nightmares and stuff, then I drop down to the psychological, right? Go down the level below and make sure it's solid. And then they'll actually start to be better just because they made sure that last level was better.
I also find this really interesting when I'm dealing with parents and I talk to the parents about, like, a lot of times how I know that parents come into my office, they'll say something like, I feel like I'm not a good parent, or I'm not providing the needs for my children like needs to happen. And I like to refer to this as like, actually, this is what the kids need. Like, are we doing that? And if not, then how can we improve it and make it better? And sometimes there's this big, great relief or this sigh that comes out and it's like, okay, I am doing that. Well, then why do we put such high expectations on our parenting? I also like to use this chart. This is great because I use it in actual couples counseling too, which is fascinating. Like, and some of these things can be dove in deeper to couples counseling. We're not talking about that today, but it's something to be curious about if like you or your partner or spouse are struggling. This is a great way to go back into this and dive into this and see like where are some of those components. You'll actually find that by repairing some of these things, you might find that it actually helps within the family unit as well.
Yep.
Yeah. So then we want to talk a little bit about our parenting archetypes. There's, well, three and a half because it has like two different names for the third. But so there's persona, shadow, anima, and animus. So your persona archetype is the parent we are out in the world. Are you stricter or more lax in public with your kids? Do you show other people yourself perfectly put together while feeling maybe like a chaotic mess back at home? This is like the front that we show the world. And then your shadow archetype is, it represents the parts of yourself that you may be ashamed of, that you can't shake. You don't have to act on your shadow urges in order to accept them as part of you are. Maybe it's like trauma that's happened in the past that keeps coming up as you are parenting, and maybe it's something that you need to like work through. And then anima and animus are ideas, culture norms, maybe like gender roles in the family, experience that you had in your family, and these are things that you can decide to do in now your family, or maybe you want to switch things up, and that means kind of changing the rules that maybe society has given. And then I want to talk a little bit about embracing imperfection. It's important to recognize that as a parent, you're not going to be perfect. There's going to be mistakes, and also recognizing that your child isn't going to be perfect. So, reflecting on the idea that imperfection is a natural part of your life and growth, and letting go of some of those unrealistic expectations you put on yourself and also on your children. And then reflecting on the importance of being true to yourself as a parent and seeing like what you are succeeding in instead of focusing on maybe, oh, you didn't do this right. Let's focus on the positives rather than the negatives. And then also just being authentic and genuine with your connections with your children, and letting them see like that you aren't perfect and that they can also have moments of imperfection, because sometimes children, they put their parents on a pedestal and think like my parent is perfect and they can do no wrong. And I think that's maybe not the best mindset of helping them see that you can make mistakes so that they can understand that they can make mistakes.
So we're going to take some time right here, and we want you to pause the video, and I want you to write down a bunch of things under each of these areas. Reflection, letting go of unrealistic expectations, reflecting on the importance of being true to yourself, and authenticity. See what kind of some of those areas kind of pull out for you in direction with working with your children or with others around you. Is there a way of turning that finger back into yourself and seeing some of those things that maybe you could find a little bit of an avenue to change up and be different? So take that time now and pause the video, and let's reflect on those things. Okay, and those of you that are ready to go on, here we are. So now that you have those list of things, let's go ahead and carry on and talk a little bit about embracing imperfection.
Yeah. So I think what's the word? Affirmations are really good. I know sometimes they can feel silly to have affirmations, but these are some good ones for you as a mom or a dad. You can replace dad. For you to say to yourself of like, I am a good mom and dad. I am exactly who my kid needs. I am capable of amazing things. I am grateful for the time I get to spend with my kids. My kids don't need a perfect mom or dad. I will show my kids love through my actions and words, and I will stay calm even in the midst of chaos. And I am not just a mom or a dad. There are other characteristics and qualities about you other than that role. And then also teaching your children affirmations as well. So we have some ones for you to do with your kids that will help them realize their worth and what they're capable of, and realizing that they don't have to be perfect either. And I just think affirmations are a really good practice to have in the home with your children.
I think this is really important because we know that the words that we say can be very influential and can carry throughout our life with us. And they also have an ability to influence, right? And so in our affirmations that we talk to ourselves or say to ourselves, it can promote a more healthy prospect of looking at the glass as half full instead of half empty. And by teaching those through example of you sharing those things, can actually teach your children how to become that way or how to say those things. I also like to say, like, speaking out loud is a great gift you can give your kids. Like, I can do this, Brandy. Like, that's something that I'll say, okay, it's hard right now, but I got this. And I'll say it out loud and my kids can hear that. And what do I hear my kids saying now? I can do it. I got this. And so modeling some of those behaviors that you want them to have, especially with positive affirmations, it teaches a child to become more positively minded, and which we all know that when we're positive minded, there's more doors of opportunity that open up for us and lead us. It also helps us heal some of those really heavy things that kind of come up in our life and cause complications.
I like that. Moving on to a little bit of peace and understanding, and choosing to have peace and understanding with your child. There may be times where maybe they do something that isn't really what you had wanted for them to do or expected them to do, but coming at it with peace and understanding. So we have a little diagram, the way of being. They have a behavior, and you can either go at it with a heart of peace or a heart of war. A heart of peace is like thinking about others are people, and thinking of like their hopes, their needs, their cares, their fears as real as to me as my own, thinking more about the individual, whereas heart of war is others are objects, obstacles, vehicles, and irrelevant to you. So basically, the heart of peace is seeing people for who they are, whereas a heart of war is seeing them for what they're not. And then we just have a little bit of a peacemaking pyramid. Get out of the box, obtain a heart of peace, build on your relationship with the influence that you have with them, continue to build the relationship, listen and learn from them, teach and communicate, and then you can lead to correct.
This is another great one to stop the video right here. And I want you to take a moment to really dive into each of these levels. Where are we really good at? Can we put a couple stars by the ones that we're actually accomplishing and doing really well at? And maybe have a little bit of self-reflection in this moment, and maybe even an awakening where we can really look at these things and say, I could really do a little bit better in building the relationship with my children, or learning how to listen with understanding instead of to critique and to change. And so, like, finding those things in these in this different parts of this pyramid could be really helpful. So go ahead and pause the video right here, take a moment, put some stars by these, put some question marks, write out maybe some thoughts and understanding that could be really helpful here for you. And then let's go about and then come back to us here, and we'll go forward with our teaching obstacles that we have. Okay, so those of you that are back with us, which ones did you find that had a bunch of stars next to them? And you're doing great at. Can we celebrate those and really obtain some great levels of like confidence in ourselves and our parenting? And which ones do we kind of put some question marks by, or put a little dot 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 next to of a maybe in there? And did you find some ways that maybe, hey, I could change this and make this better, and some solutions to improving your relationship with your child? It definitely with the peacemaking pyramid.
Notice that you can't get to teach and correct until you've done all those other base level things. So if you're going right to teach and correct, recognize you need to be able to do the other, listen and build a relationship before you can get to that part.
I love this.
Yeah.
I actually think that this is a really healthy perspective way of learning how to communicate effectively with your child as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's important to have every single step of the pyramid. And then we want to talk about cultivating self-compassion. Again, realizing that you have some compassion for yourself as a parent, and that through motivation to change for the better, you'll lead to more effortful learning and encourage more resolve to avoid repeating past mistakes, meaning you're just going to keep improving. You will make mistakes, and you're going to continue to get better as long as you have compassion for yourself through those mistakes. And then there are 3 different components of self-compassion. Self-kindness, which is like being warm and understanding to yourself. Common humanity is seeing both your positive and negative experience as part of the shared human experience, so you don't isolate yourself from others during ups and downs. And then just having mindfulness and increasing your ability to be realistic and not super judgmental on yourself based on your experiences and the experiences of your children's. And then I want to talk about a little bit, piggybacking off of a little of mindfulness, talking about maybe some small meditations that you can do throughout the day, throughout a hard moment with your child, and just kind of having a moment to reflect. Here are some good practices that you can do. Make a practice of taking a deep breath every time you walk through a doorway or shift from one activity to another, because it helps ground you kind of in that moment, and take a minute to be like, oh, that was hard, but we're going to keep moving forward. Set a timer for 1 minute and just count your thoughts. Just notice each thought and let it pass, like kind of like a billboard on a highway. Don't really like take a minute and think about that one. We're just going to let it pass and be like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's interesting. But we're not pausing and stopping at them. And then put your hand on your heart and say, more often than not, I'm the parent I want to be. This is kind of a little bit of an affirmation that you can say to yourself, that you're not going to be the perfect parent all the time, but more often than not, you are trying your best. Count your steps as you walk. Try taking 3 steps per inhale and 3 steps per exhale. And then also you can do a lion's breath, which is inhale long and then open your mouth wide and stick out your tongue while making a roar sound, which if you want to do any of these with your children, you can. And I'm sure the last one they will find pretty funny. And yeah, any last thoughts?
There's some definite beauty in body and the way that we move, our movements and our sound that we make and our breath that we take in. In fact, David Kessler talks a lot about these things, and this can be really a great component to incorporate when we're feeling big. And so I know it sounds really strange and weird that we're talking about roaring like a lion and opening your mouth big, but if we can incorporate natural movement that we're feeling with our body, such as like raising our hands, and as they come down, breathing deep, and then when they go up, using some sort of a sound that feels natural and normal that needs to come out, can be like a huge component to like de-escalation throughout your body when you're feeling big. So don't be afraid of sound and body and breath.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's all we have for this week. Any final thoughts or insights?
No, this was good.
No, that's a great one to go back and self-reflect on.
Yeah.
That's a great one.
Reflection is
Maybe
really
consider going back through this one again and kind of seeing like some of the components of that self-awareness. Like, definitely you're here because you want to make a difference in your child's life and that you want to become a better parent, and here's the components on how. And so seeing how we did a basic run through on them, but really dig deeper into some of these concepts and see, how can I become a better parent, or how can I do this a little bit differently because how I'm doing it isn't really helping, and then start incorporating some of those things. This gives you the guideline step. Now, if you find that maybe I'm really quick to critique and to criticize or to get them to conform, maybe this is a good time to go and look into that and start diving into, I have a concept that I'm trying to do. Maybe I need to do more listening and maybe more seeking to understand, and finding books and podcasts and pathways to like learn and incorporate those type of different movements in your type of parenting.
For sure. The modeling is huge. It's awesome.
Yeah, good job.
That's a
Okay.
great one.
And next week, stay tuned. We're going to be talking about regulation, which is so important for you and your children so that they can learn to regulate their emotions.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.